Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Patricia Schober from the Client Success team at GDL Rio, and it is our pleasure to welcome you to our fourth Techs-Mex webinar, which is going to be the last in the series, using technology to efficiently administrate your Guadalajara operations. Before we begin, we would appreciate it if you could help us out by answering the following question. How did you find out about this webinar? Please take a few seconds to let us know how you learned about today's session. In the meantime, while you answer a survey, please allow me to present our speakers for today's topic. This afternoon, we're joined by Álvaro Quesada, Finance Associate, and Bernardo Del Rio, Managing Partner, both from GDL Rio. They will be talking to us about the way tech companies can best take advantage of technology to efficiently manage their businesses. Thank you very much for being with us today. Álvaro and Bernardo, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have now finished the survey. Thank you for having taken time to answer this brief question. So let's talk about today's agenda. This is the last webinar in the Techs-Mex series, so we would like to briefly recap the past 3 webinars. Then we will start by talking about the challenges tech companies face these days when they start administrating their businesses in a different country. We will also talk about how to choose the best tools for your current operations, present you an alternative that we think could be of interest for foreign companies doing business here in Mexico. And finally, we will finish up with some general tips that can help you optimize the administration of your business. Please also note that you can send us your questions to the chat module at any time during the webinar, and we will try to answer all of them in our Q&A session at the end of the presentation. We will now summarize the previous webinars quickly. In our first webinar, Jesse Torrance from Startup GDL and Bernardo talked to you about why Guadalajara is Mexico's new Silicon Valley, and pointed out the benefits you gain from setting up operations here, from the available local talent to affordable cost of living and office space. In our second webinar, we talked about talent. We were joined by Carlos Quirarte, Director of Operations at EPAM, and Laura Nichols, Client Success Manager at GDL Del Rio, who introduced you to the topic of how to attract and retain the best talent, and let you know about recruiting, immigration rules, employee benefits, and what you need to get started here. In this same webinar, we were also joined by Edith Rojas from the HR department at Wiseline, and Siad Mohammed, a software engineer also at Wiseline, who shared his experience as an expat in Guadalajara. Finally, in our previous webinar last month, our topic were government incentives and how to take full advantage of them. For this webinar, we were joined by the General Director of International Promotion in Jalisco, Lisette Lamas, and the Regional Director of ProMexico, Sergio Rios. Here you learned that the Mexican government can help you with a great number of incentives and how you can obtain these.
Thank you, Patricia. The last webinar, which is what we're talking about now, is now that I've decided that I want to set up in Mexico, I've been warmed to the idea by all these webinars and what I've heard from friends. First of all, how do I do it? It's the how-to part of all this. And we're going to talk a bit about, I like to talk about not only larger companies that set up 100, 200 employees, but also like the very small companies that make it work, the cost savings where we have clients that are 2 or 3 employees, and the company will set up a software base or an operating base, and they have 2 or 3 employees, and it still makes sense for them. So we want to talk about what do you do if you set up a typical 5-10 person operation, but I don't have a lot of the back office. So I'm not going to have really an admin staff or anything like that, and you still need to get payroll paid, and you still need petty cash, and you still need a bunch of the day-to-day stuff that kind of ties you down. So to explain a bit how we do that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Álvaro, an associate of ours.
Thank you, Bernardo. That's correct. That's the main goal for this session, that we can talk to you, guide you through, maybe give you some tips about what you can do to manage your operation here in Mexico. And because of that, I would like to start by giving you some facts about technology. The first one is that it's true that all companies of all sizes use technology, no matter what the size are. They need it to manage their business. Technology is among us. It's for our everyday life, and companies it's not an exception. Because of that and how the technology keep growing every day, There is a large universe of technology available for all kinds of service and products. And because of that, we will see that there are different ranges of prices. Some of them will be very accessible for most companies. Some others probably won't. And this is where we need to try to efficient that way by choosing the best fit for my company. Investing in technology, it's obviously one of the main reasons why companies also get success, because they don't see that as an expense. They see it as an investment that will eventually pay off, and that's a fact. That's the reality, and there are tons of success companies that made it happen because of the combination of those resources, the economic resources, the talent resource, but obviously the tools that are available to make that happen. But even there's technology here, tech companies that we have seen in our business, we notice that they have different challenges, and some of them, we try to put them here so you be aware that you can face some of them, but also that you can walk them in order to make a good choice. So for that, obviously time and resources are one of the main goals. Companies that are about to think of a new venture here in Mexico, they need obviously time and money to make it happen, but sometimes that budget is very limited, so they need to manage that with those limited resources. Obviously, once you're planning to move to a different country like Mexico, you need to start what the compliance is, because obviously it is an administrative burden for you, and you need to be sure that you can face that so you don't have any kind of situations or liability instead of taxes, accounting, or labor. So it's really important for you to do that analysis at the beginning so you don't get some surprises in the process. Training staff. You have limited resources, including staff. Probably you won't have the back office yet or the GM, so that can be another obstacle for you to manage your operation, but not necessarily is something that you cannot do or outsource, and that's something that we're going to talk in a few slides. So I wouldn't like to go that further now. Security of information. Tech companies, it's their currency in this world. That's what they sell, and obviously they want to protect their data. All the trade secrets, all the technology, artificial intelligence, all of it must be secure. You need to guarantee that you will have these problems if you go to a different country. There are some rules, but there are also some elements to avoid for losing that technology or those secrets, like firewalls, protection softwares, and other especially process. One of the other things that we have seen that companies face is that sometimes they don't even have a process well defined in their home countries. So if they want to start a new company or a new venture in another country, they won't have those processes to replicate or adapt or customize to the new venture. So probably that could happen. We've seen these cases. There are some rare cases, but like everywhere, there are good companies, well established, other companies that are doing the business the best they can, probably without proper introduction or proper advisory, but it's one of the things that we have seen. So the best way to make it happen is to try to replicate what really makes you a success company in the States. If you can do that in Mexico with the tools, you will be facing a very good, bright future on your company. Language barrier. Obviously, this is something that tech companies needs to know. Even if we're in Mexico and we have a large level of high-level engineers, still managing with bureaucrats, with tax offices, partners, maybe here some clients, the language sometimes could be a barrier, but it's not like it's the main barrier, but it's there. So as long as you can pass by that or try to make it efficient, you will be on the other side. In our experience, what we have seen with the startups with small sizes and sometimes medium sizes that are trying a new venture here in Mexico, they prefer to outsource most of the administrative part of the operation, like accounting, treasury, payroll, and others, because they're going to a country that they don't know yet, and they need to have a right partner that will help them make that transition very easy. So in our experience, it's probably the first step that companies try or tend to do. Why? Well, the main reason for that is that sometimes it's faster to implement that way, use the tools that this partner or these associate vendors can offer in order to propose you everything, so you don't have to invest more time and resources engineering your process or adapting in a very complex way if they can offer you a solution from day one.
Sure, and that allows you to focus on really your core business.
Exactly. That's one of the things that tech companies obviously want to do. They want to do their business. They need someone that helps them walk to the administrative process, so all your resources are in accordance to the core plan. Sometimes tech companies don't have the GM yet, so they need to start hiring, but they obviously will prefer to hire the right tech guy that will do the production, the software, the coding, instead of looking for the HR department, for the one that will control in banks, because that is obviously needed, but if you can improve that process and select the people that will make the business for you, that will be terrific. Sometimes it is obviously depending the needs for your company. There will be a lower cost probably on the immediate effect, since your operation is not that large, but it is something that we have seen that it's very accessible for most of these companies. Finally, we've seen that even if the business in the parent company or in the headquarters are going great, and this is why they're doing business in a different country, it's more time for them, so they probably don't have those resources even there, and transfer them to Mexico probably will left a space on that area, so they probably won't try to do some big changes so they don't get disabled or unbalanced on that area. So sometimes that happens, and this is something that you must know, that you can probably face. Okay, how can I do or manage my operation in Mexico? We're talking about technology, and this is the essence for this webinar. We're not going to give you tools that are not there. We're talking about ERPs. ERP is the great tool that has been developed through the years to help companies, no matter what their size they are, to administrate the process like accounting, labor, and treasury. Everything now, it's based on technology. I haven't seen companies that are not in the tech area that doesn't have specialized software to do either their own jobs or some kind of other function to control their process. Why? Because the trend or the ERP most beneficial thing is that it will help you to automate internal process. It will give you the certainty that the information that you feed in the system, it's going to be more accurate than if you do or use a different type of applications like Excel. If it's in a core software, the certainty of the information will be better. The information will be available at any time and to the right people that need to see that information. Not all of them must be involved in the process. Those are the leaders for the company that usually have this access, because they need to have information right away, because information helps to define business, and having the right information will make that happen.
And when we're talking about accessible anytime, like we're really talking about cloud-based ERPs, right?
Correct. There are different types of ERPs, and it's in a few slides, but yes, we'll try to recommend that the iCloud is the best choice now. There are ERPs, but they need to be installed. You need VPN access. It's more complex. The thing here is that it has to be easier for everyone to access and read the information that it's on the ERP. ERPs also allow you to detect areas of opportunity. If you have large projects or process, The ERP can be tracked who authorized what, when, why. So eventually you can do your own homework and review what you can improve, because let's face it, if you don't improve, even if you have a right process, you need to improve and keep adapt to the economics, to your needs, to the new markets. And because of that, an ERP can be a great assistance for making that a reality. How can I choose technology? Because there are several and a lot of options out there. My first recommendation will be that if you're doing business or you tend to or plan to do business in a different country, you need first to review what's the compliance regarding accounting and tax. In this case, Mexico, if you have been in our previous webinars, we have talked about that Mexico has several compliance in some cases. It's an administrative burden for you, and having the statutory books in place, it's probably one of the main that you need to take a look before you try to move on, because now the government is very technological as well. So they tend to review information once you provide the right information to them. So technology is not only for companies, also by tax authorities, which could sound creepy, but that's the reality. They try to speed their audit process and make sure that the taxes are filed properly. So technology is for everyone, and that's a true fact here in Mexico.
Sure, and I love the word creepy. I've always said that we're going to get to the point in Mexico where they implant a microchip into your brain, and then anytime you have bad thoughts, the tax authorities will shock you or something. But that's an important point in that the government handles everything electronically. All the filings are electronic. We need to file a standardized chart of accounts, a trial balance on a monthly basis. And so the ERP that you're picking, you need to make sure that it does that in order to avoid any double processing or anything like that. So that's an excellent point, Alvaro.
Thank you, Bernardo. You need an ERP that fit your needs. You probably won't need all this expensive or very specialized software as long as you can manage the operation or the key process in your business. That will be great. But one recommendation, don't think small. If you are planning to do business in Mexico, it's because you think there's a great opportunity to make business and have profits. So the ERP that you're about to choose, it's probably going to help you now on a short period. But think beyond that and think that if you go up that way, the software must be capable to follow you. So it's really important, and sometimes we forgot where we're heading our business.
Correct. A lot of times we'll run into, and I don't know if we have that further down in the slides, is we'll look at companies that are looking at an ERP and they have an operation or will have an operation in Mexico, and they don't make sure it's multi-currency. So that becomes an important stumbling block. If it's not multi-currency, it's only in dollars.
That's correct, Bernardo. Thank you. Obviously, pricing it's important. There's a lot of technology. I encourage you to take a look for some options that fit your needs, because obviously implementing a software probably will take time. That's for sure. But if you do your plan with the time, with deadlines, and with the right people, that process shouldn't be that painful, or should be easier, I would like to say. Fit your needs and your industry, your tech industry, and there's different types of tech companies in the automotive, in the artificial electronic area. So you probably need to take a look for those type of ERPs. You wouldn't like to see an ERP that is specialized for nonprofits or for restaurants. So you need to go directly into the specialized softwares out there. And obviously another recommendation is that always try to ask for a demo, to do some kind of practicing that can show you what the ERP can do and cannot do, so you don't get any surprises, because you're going to invest in there and probably it could be a significant price depending on what you're looking. But asking a demo is probably a good choice.
Talking about different ERPs, and Alvaro, please feel free to jump in at any time. Like we created a graph here that starts on the left-hand side with complexity from more to less, and pricing on the bottom from more to from less to more. So we positioned some of these software, like Mexico's answer to QuickBooks is called Compact, and it's very easy to install, very quick, but it's also kind of low on the functionality, and it's not web-based. So that's an option that's interesting if a company really doesn't need too much interaction, or if it's a very small company. That can be an interesting option. We use it a lot, the whole family of software that they have. We have, on the whole other end of the spectrum, we have SAP. So anyone that's dealt with SAP knows it's great and does everything automatically once it's up and running and once you've invested the equivalent of a Lamborghini. But not everyone has a Lamborghini to spare. So something in the middle sounds just about right. Like we've put Microsoft Dynamics, NetSuite. I don't know what your opinion on these two is.
Sure. Like you say, Bernardo, there's a large gamma out there. Obviously, ERPs are different from each other, but at the end, they tend to simplify your life. NetSuite is a great software. Some clients of us have used it in the States, but for Mexico, probably it's not that right fit in terms of pricing, because they're trying to have the local version done, but it's not quite yet done. So it's probably one of the obstacles, but it's a great software, and it's an iCloud software. Microsoft Dynamics is another software that some companies use, but it's also on the high gamma type of software. And we can add in the middle another different software says we included here in Tech that I believe it's very interesting. And just to give more comments regarding Compact, Compact complies entirely with obligations here in Mexico, and this is why probably 80–70% of the local companies use it. But it's not an ERP, it is actually a software with a better limited access. And like you said, if you don't want too many interaction, or your operation is really small, probably you need that. You don't need probably to manage more process if you don't need to.
But even I think even small companies, like if you're talking a 5-person entity, I think it would still, you could still gain an advantage from using something like an Intact, just because if you have to pay payroll on 4 or 5 people, or cut checks for 4 or 5 people, it's kind of the same process if it's 4 or 5 or if it's 10 or 20 or 30. It's the same process, a little bit more operations, but the same processes have to also be done. And so, like, we've seen companies where even small operations can be complicating. Yes. Yeah. So I think this is where we wanted to position some of the difference between like what's out there in the market for Mexico.
Thank you, Bernardo. Now that we have seen that there are different types of companies that are struggling getting the technology for them, us at J Del Rio, we would like to help in that area, and this is why we have created a new service, which is our client accounting services, which is a new platform that we will offer to our clients so they can interact in those processes. So that kind of the management, it's easy for them. Why? Because we will be sure that it will help to reduce the cost. You will have streamlined reviews. It includes authorization process, which is priceless for companies that manage large level of transactions or amounts. There has to be a track of that, and authorization, if it's in a software, it will minimize some kind of errors by sharing information to some contact that shouldn't have that information, because there will be some stumbles in the process. Automate process for sure. Obviously, some custom reports can be prepared, And now that everyone, and I'm probably one of those guys that I cannot leave if I don't have my cell phone next to me, you will have access to your mobile device as long as you have internet connection. So if you need to authorize a process, you log in from your mobile device, iPhone, Android, click, and the process will move in on without you need to log in, go into the Starbucks and get some internet connection and use the computer. So we're trying to put these tools available for you so we can help you to make the administration for your company more easy so you can efficient those times and resources to your core business. What we're offering here is Intech. As you can see on the previous slide, Intech is kind of in the middle between complexity and pricing. It's a very competitive pricing. It's a great license that it will allow you to give you what tech companies are looking. They don't need to have probably the greater inventory control, specialized software on the restaurants or whatever. You only need exactly. You need only a few models that will allow you to manage that process, like the GL, which is accounting, your accounts payable. You will have aging right there for you, AR, travel and expenses, because tech companies have employees that need to travel a lot. So this tool offers you a way to manage that, to control and authorize payments. The good thing about Intech is not that only have 4 models. They are a very friendly software that allow to plug in different ads or have add-ons on it from different softwares. So if you're looking for some integration regarding your specialized business, or that you require some kind of adapting the ERP, definitely can be done through Intech. So it's a matter to take a look into that, but it's one of the best things that make it different from other close softwares or ERPs like SAP that are more complex to open those gates.
Sure, and I think the philosophy that Intech has followed is more the best in breed philosophy of I'll do what I do best, and if there are other suppliers that do their thing better, then you can connect via an API and have it sync in. And again, at the end of the day, the objective with this whole new service is kind of to mesh technology with our services to give you, and with what you do as the client, so as to streamline processes. So please continue.
Sure. Thank you, Bernardo. Obviously, the platform is there, so who are the actors that will actually be part of that process? So on the left side of the slide that you are looking on your screen, the first source of information can be the company. You can have, if you already have your HR department or you have your GM and you want him to be involved, he can participate. And if you don't have that person, we can take care of the 100% of that operation on our own. So those are the sources that will feed the system. On the right side, I'm including that no matter who accesses the information or feed the system, at the end, we will include as part of our service that the information was properly recorded according to our own compliance to make sure that the information is accurate for you. So on step 3, you receive a set of financials that will help managing your operation or your core business. In here on the slide that you are looking at, it's a brief flow of how information can be treated on Intech. Obviously, it can be adapted to your needs, but it is very, very simple if you allow me. The branch will do the business, selling, getting clients, all of that, and the HQ and the brand will be the one that will handle or have the transactions, and they can include it in Intech. Like most of the ERPs, Intech allows you to attach documents, PDF, Excel files, so everything will flow in a platform. It's also for paperless purposes. Tech companies are the ones that would like to take care about that environment to be more secure and safe place for everyone. So paperless, it's also the next trend here, and Intech will allow you to make that happen.
Yeah, we love not getting a shoebox full of invoices.
Correct. It is complicated to classify the information. It has to be well documented. So if it's digital, you can easily track by a link where the information is. The accounting will be prepared according to our local GAAP. In Mexico, it's mandatory to have them in pesos and in Spanish, so we will take care. But we know that you need to receive that financial probably to consolidate the information, so we will help you running that process of conversion. That the most common here for companies that we have in the States is the FAS 52 in US dollars, but we can also report in IFRS and a different currency like euros, Canadian dollars, yens actually. So we will manage that happen so you can do the reporting through Intech. Why through Intech? Because it will be really accessible for the CFO or the manager to take a look at the financial statements, documentation, indicators, because they will have access. We don't want to keep that information on our own and them awaiting for us to complete the job. They can be part of it and they can track day by day as long as information is properly well documented and feed it into the system. So
in real time.
And in real time, of course. So we will be sure that the compliance to the tax authorities is filed on time, so you don't have to worry about that. Taxes, it's probably one of our expertise area that we manage properly for those foreign clients. Special users, we can customize a dashboard. The slide that you can see now, it's how it looks. It's an example. As you can see, it's really, really friendly, bright colors maybe, but most importantly is designed for those persons that need to read specific information right there for them, so they don't actually have to spend time looking where to access, which tab, which link, which report. It's going to be there for them right away, so they actually can do an analysis. We can include budgets to compare to your actual reports, and for financial purposes, it's really, really important. Information available for everyone so they can make decisions for the business. Different uses for your needs. That's what we were telling about the CFO, the manager.
An accounts payable person.
Accounts payable won't have that full access, obviously, because there are some confidential information, but it can be managed. And it's actually really friendly. You don't need to have a manual of 1,000 pages because it is self-instructive. There is a help assistance, like if you press F1, you can have the right help in there. That was for the accounting process. Now let's talk about accounts payable process. Managing banks and accounts payable, it's probably one of the keys. If you don't pay your vendors on time, they will shut down your service, and probably you cannot keep doing your core business that will make you lose some clients or potential business. So it's really important to manage that. And like I said before, the Intech software allows you to run that process and include approvals, which is really important. So there's someone that needs to be responsible, and in that we can prepare and customize that process so it can be done through the system. On the slide that you're looking at, it's really, really simple how this usually works, and it's a flow. The vendor sends the information to the company. An AP clerk, which in this case can be us or can be someone from your staff if you have decided and have the resources available. But we can be that function, which is gathering those documents, request the payments, and most importantly, set up the bank transfer right there for you, so you only can approve and do and press the right click to release the funds. The headquarters or the bank or the branch will have access all the time to keep track about those invoices, the payment. They will have a document viewer so they can see what actually been requested for payment. You will have agent reports to see, okay, what's my deadline for paying this vendor? It's next week, it's in a month. you will have that tool available. And obviously, the final approval, it's always on your end. You decide what to do. We only will be those middle persons that will make that happen. Banking in Mexico, it's really important for those companies. It was actually included as part of the first webinars. You need to choose a bank that offers you an English platform and obviously a two-step approval process, so you can have more control on releasing the funds. And at the end, the vendor will have the proof that they get paid. So everything of this can be done automatically through Intect.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention, Alvaro, and it's one thing that I know our clients love is that if I'm, let's say it's a 10-person operation, they don't have an AP person in Mexico. We serve as that function in our Treasury Department, and the authorization for to buy a computer or a laptop or whatever has to go to a person that's based in Singapore. So we would upload it into the system, and that person, if that's the person that is set up as the approver, they would get a notification, you have a pending approval.
That is correct. The system can be set up or configured, so every time someone requests a payment, they can get a notification by email. We can disable or enable as many times as we want, because if it's 100 payments a week, probably it's going to be a nightmare for the approval process. But if it's not that large scale, we can adapt, and at the end, he can access from his mobile device and click approve in a very easy.
And instead of having a whole bunch of email chains go back and forth, and then you're looking for the authorizations, and did I authorize this, did I authorize that? And in this way, you just click, 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 authorized, and then it flows to us for programming in the bank.
That's correct. That's the way that we have a structure that works for most of the companies that we manage their banks. It's working, and it's a great tool for them. Okay, so as a brief summary, we have discussed the ERP that you're about to choose must fit your needs, obviously. Pricing, modules required, compliance in Mexico. Don't be afraid to outsource those departments or those processes, because like I said, sometimes it's faster, it's a very competitive price out there, and if not, you can always adapt the process so that party help you doing the business the way that you want. Obviously, implement your controls, try to replicate them in Mexico, because obviously if you succeed in your home country, why not keep doing or following the same logic in Mexico? Know the local compliance. Mexico, it's very edgy on the tech, especially on the authority side. So you have to be on the same level of managing your elements. It will save you time and resources, and we'll be glad to help you in that area.
Sure. And I think you hit the nail on the head in the sense that compliance is becoming more and more and more important in Mexico. Like making sure that you're doing everything properly on the accounting side, on the tax side, is just so much more important, because the authorities just look through a company with all the information that they have, in the sense that any invoice that gets issued is stamped by the government electronically, automatically goes to their server and back, so they know you bought a $10 box of pens before you even did. So having the invoices that the government receives on one side and making sure that they match to what you have on your side. And one of the important things, I don't think we've brought it up, is that there is a problem in Mexico in the sense of kind of bad invoices. So where suppliers will give you an invoice that isn't valid, and when you go and try to deduct it or credit the value added tax or everything, that invoice won't be valid. and it happens a lot kind of in the construction industry or just smaller suppliers that you deal with, but even bigger ones. Like you'll run into cases where, and it's basically that the other person isn't paying their taxes. So through our treasury process and our accounting process, we screen all your suppliers to make sure that they're doing things properly. Now, it's never a 100% guarantee, but it's a whole lot better than nothing.
Yes, Bernardo, thanks for mentioning that. I forgot to bring it on previous slides. So what's the goal here? To offer you that tool so you can address all your time and efforts to get more clients, new market, complete your business plan, keep innovating, and try to spend the less time as possible managing an operation that can be outsourced. So eventually it will help you to reduce those costs, so your profits will be better.
Okay, and the other item that we've seen come up is the payroll side of things, where I've decided I want to set up an entity in Mexico. I want to set up a software center, design center of some sort, and I have 10, 15 employees. It's, what do I do? Like the first objective is always like, how do I find the people? We already talked about that, like that they're good headhunters, word of mouth. You can refer to our previous webinar on talent. But let's say I already have the people. Now what do I do? And a lot of companies, and we've seen this, is they like to have kind of the employees on a third party's payroll, like in a Manpower, an Adecco, or someone like that, for a couple of months, like 2-3 months. They see it's a good fit, and you bring them on board. There you get into kind of a talent acquisition issue, because if I have a great job at a well-known company, let's say I'm working at HP or Intel or wherever, and you want me to come work with you, it's a competitive disadvantage for you as a company trying to hire that talent to not hire them directly. Like, people look at it in less favorable light. If I have to decide, do I stay at Intel or any other company, versus I'm going to work with this very exciting new company, but I'm going to be on an outsourced payroll. It's not the same feeling. Also, we had labor reform, and we say recent labor reform, but and this is recent for Mexico, but the labor reform, one of the items that they touched on was subcontracting, and how that can affect, and what are the rules regarding when you can and can't do it. There are government criterias and deductibility that have to be kind of considered if you're going to outsource all your staff. The company is liable even if employees are outsourced. So you're liable if the outsourcing company doesn't pay the taxes or the benefits. There's a lot of compliance recently for dealing with outsourcing companies. Clients that we work with, it's difficult to meet all of them. Like, at the end of the day, it's hoops to jump through. Like, I think the better outsourcing companies will be fine, but I think the lower end outsourcing companies can sometimes have an issue. So we always recommend taking a look at that on the legal and the tax side with your lawyers, with us, to see what's the strategy to be followed here. Overall, like, outsourcing, like having the employees on someone else's payroll, tend to be more expensive in the long run versus doing it internally and the fee for processing. So it's kind of an issue of like planning things out to make sure, and kind of not getting scared of the issue of, oh, well, how am I going to pay it? And the last point is direct hiring motivates employees, the sense of belonging, which I was talking about before. The trial period, that's what we were talking about, is like if you take it 2-3 months, something like that, there's not too much of an issue. and most tech companies do hire their employees directly. So that's the market you compete with. And just to clarify, like at the end of the day, once you want to handle those employees directly, that's also a service that we can provide, is calculating that payroll to make sure that you calculate it correctly, and our treasury function can actually pay it for you if as part of that whole package of doing the accounts payable, the accounting, everything else. So I think we have time for some Q&A, so I'm going to pass it over to Patricia.
Thank you, Bernardo. Before we start the Q&A session, we would like to ask you once again to answer a brief survey, please, if you could. And this would help us shape our next webinar series and make it more informative and helpful for you. The question is, what did you think about the Techs-Mex project? We would appreciate very much if you could just take a moment to reply. And also, for the people who have just joined us in this fourth session of the webinar, if you would like to watch our previous 3 webinars, please remember that you can find them under Techs-Mex 2017.jadelrio.com. And please also feel free to contact us if you have any questions, and we will gladly help you. Thank you very much once again for taking the time to answer our last survey question. And now let's start with the Q&A session. And so we can try and answer some of the questions you have sent in during the presentation. Our first question that we got is, what if we already have an ERP we work with company-wide? Can our current ERP be implemented for our Mexican subsidiary?
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for sending that question. It's actually very interesting because obviously companies or parent companies has already the technology, their software, and they would like to try to replicate that because they already know the process. It is obviously possible, something that you can do, but like I said on the previous slides, you have to be sure that that system complies 100% with the compliance in Mexico, especially on electronic accounting. So if you have a different software, please, you can send me that email to see what the ERP is so we can take a look, and obviously we can adapt. Intech is not the only software out there. It's a tool that we can offer that is very competitive for you, but at the end we can adapt to the ERP that you have, and we'll be glad to help if that is the case.
Yeah, we're technology agnostic. We can use anything.
We have another question here. You were talking about information security. How can the Intech platform help me protect my information?
Okay, security. Good question. Intech, like all ERPs or software, always need to have a user, a password, which is like the main things that this software does. But after that, they have like what it's now like a double-step verification, where you need to include an authenticator code through a barcode, or maybe they can send you a text message on your cell phone so you can digit for some numbers so you can complete the access. In case of someone install your password, they will need to access on that. And now that you mentioned security, and it's really important for us to inform you that here also GDL are very concerned about that. And this is why we have implemented and actually have a certification on ISO 27001, which is the secure for the information. We have implemented several processes here. We've been audited, and I'm very confident to tell that we're probably one of the top 3-5 companies in Mexico that actually has this certification. So we're very concerned of that, and it's part of the process to make you feel comfortable and safe regarding all your information, because like I said, information is also currency.
Correct, and because of that, I can't drink coffee at my desk anymore outside of a mug. Correct.
Okay. The next question, and this is the last question that we have gotten. If I wanted to get Intech for my company, how long does it usually take to be implemented and fully functional?
That's another good question. It would depend on how complex your company is, your process that you want to implement, your chart of account. If you're about to start the company here in Mexico, it will be faster than having to move in from one system to another. But if it's what we have seen with most companies, probably can be done within a week or two, maybe, including training, because obviously the platform is there for you. So we will give you the training that you need to access that part of the process or reviewing. So you're not alone on this path. We'll be glad to help. And if you want to try this tool, we can get a session demo for you, so you have the certainty that what we're telling you can be done actually. So thanks for making that question.
Thank you very much, everybody, for attending our webinar, and thank you very much, Bernardo and Alvaro, for the very interesting information. Once again, if you would like to watch all our webinars, it is under Techs-Mex2017.jdelrio.com. And this webinar will be also, if you're registered, it will be sent to you by tomorrow.
Yes, if you have further questions or about our services or this platform that we are offering, please, here you have my contact information. You can send it, and I'll try to reply as fast as I can, and either to me or to Patty, and we'll be glad to help. And thank you everyone for your time, and talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you everyone.